There's a mountain in Arizona where people still disappear, and it all started with one German immigrant and a sack of gold so pure it seemed impossible. His name was Jacob Waltz. Folks called him the Dutchman, even though he was German. Out in the Arizona Territory in the 1870s, nobody cared much about the difference. What they cared about was the gold. And Jacob had gold. Not the kind you panned from a creek bed. Not the dusty flecks you'd find after breaking your back for a week. This was different. When Jacob rolled into Phoenix from the Superstition Mountains, he carried chunks of gold or so rich they practically glowed. The kind of gold that made grown men go quiet. The kind that made them start whispering. Where did he find it? Jacob never said. He'd just smile, buy his supplies, and head back into those jagged peaks. The superstitions rose up from the desert floor like broken teeth, all red rock and shadows. The Apache called them sacred. Cursed, some said. White men had been warned to stay away. Jacob didn't listen. For years, he made those trips. Always alone. Sometimes with his partner, a man named Jacob Weiser. They'd disappear into the canyons for weeks, then emerge with more gold. Enough to live comfortably. Enough to make people wonder. But never enough to draw too much attention. That was the smart play. But smart doesn't last forever when gold is involved. Jacob Weiser was the first to die. Some say the Apache got him. Others say it was Jacob Waltz himself. Out in the desert, stories twist like heat rising off stone. What's true is that Weiser went into those mountains one day and never came back. Jacob Waltz kept mining alone after that. He was getting older. The trips got harder. By the winter of 1891, Jacob was sick, bedridden in a boarding house in Phoenix, coughing up his lungs. He knew he was dying. That's when he started talking. A woman named Julia Thomas took care of him in those final days. She brought him food, changed his sheets, listened to his stories. And one night, fevered and half delirious, Jacob told her where the mine was. He described landmarks. A rock formation that looked like a face. A canyon with a spring. A cave hidden behind brush. He sketched a crude map on paper, his hand shaking. He told her the gold was there, waiting, more than any person could spend in a lifetime. Then he died. Julia Thomas didn't waste time. She gathered a group of men and headed into the superstitions. They searched for weeks. They found nothing. The landmarks didn't match. The map made no sense once they were actually in the mountains. The desert has a way of swallowing things. Details that seem clear in a room disappear when you're standing under that brutal sun. They gave up, but the story didn't die with them. Word spread. A German immigrant had found a gold mine so rich it defied belief. He'd kept it secret his whole life. Now it was out there, unclaimed, abandoned, just waiting for someone smart enough to find it. Prospectors started flooding the superstitions. Men from all over the country. Some came alone. Others came in groups. They brought gear, maps, theories. They carved trails into the rock. They dynamited cave entrances. They crawled into holes that hadn't seen sunlight in 1,000 years. And they started dying. Some got lost and ran out of water. The desert doesn't forgive that mistake. Others fell from cliffs, their bones found months later by the next wave of searchers. A few were found with bullets in them. Arguments over claims. Paranoia. Gold fever makes people see enemies everywhere. The Apache didn't help. They'd been pushed off their land, forced onto reservations, but the superstitions remained theirs in spirit. They didn't take kindly to white men tearing up their sacred mountains. Bodies turned up with arrows in them. Prospectors who wandered too deep simply vanished. If you're hooked on this story, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next wild tale. Trust me, this one gets darker. By the early 1900s, the Lost Dutchman Mine had become legend. Newspapers ran stories about it. Magazines published supposed maps. Con artists sold fake claims. Guidebooks appeared, each one claiming to have the real location. None of them did, but people kept looking. In 1931, a treasure hunter named Adolf Ruth arrived in the superstitions. He was in his 60s, too old for this kind of trip, but he claimed to have information, a connection to Jacob Waltz. Secret knowledge passed down. He hired a guide to take him into the mountains, then sent the guide away. Said he wanted to search alone. 2 months later, a cowboy found his skull. It had 2 bullet holes in it. His body was discovered 6 months after that, half a mile away. Decapitated. His belongings scattered. His notes were missing. Whatever Adolf Ruth had known died with him. The murders didn't stop. In 1947, a man named James Cravey went into the Superstitions with a treasure map. He took climbing gear, a camera, supplies for weeks. His body was found a year later, decapitated just like Ruth. Pattern or coincidence? In the 1950s, two men named Joseph Kelly and his friend Stanley Fernandez hiked into the mountains. They told people they'd found something. Wouldn't say what. They went back for a second trip. Both were found shot to death. The killings continued through the decades. Prospectors found with their heads caved in. Hikers who disappeared without a trace. In 1976, a man named Howard Poling was found dead near a camp. Murdered. His killer was never caught. In 1980, 3 people looking for the mine went missing. Months of searching turned up nothing. Local authorities started warning people to stay away. The Forest Service put up signs. But gold does something to people. It makes them deaf to reason. They'd read about Jacob Waltz and his, or samples. They'd see photos of the Superstitions, all those twisting canyons and hidden valleys. And they'd think, I'll be the one who finds it. They never were. Theories piled up over the years. Some said the mine was never real. That Jacob Waltz robbed a Mexican mining operation and spun a story to cover his tracks. Others believed the Apache had sealed the mine after Waltz died, burying it under rock slides to keep their land sacred. A few thought the mine was cursed, that something in those mountains didn't want to be found, that it protected itself. Paranormal investigators showed up. They brought equipment, took readings, reported strange electromagnetic fields, voices in the canyons, shadows that moved wrong. Most people laughed them off, but the bodies kept appearing. By the 1990s, the death toll had passed 100. Some estimates put it higher. Hard to say for sure. People disappear in the desert all the time. Not all of them are treasure hunters, but the Superstitions earned a reputation. Other mountains in Arizona were harder to climb, had worse terrain, but the Superstitions had something else. Something people couldn't name but could feel. Modern searchers brought GPS and satellite imaging. They used metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar. They analyzed Jacob Waltz's story from every angle. They interviewed descendants of people who knew him. They studied geology, trying to figure out where gold deposits would naturally form in that region. Nothing worked. In 2009, a man named Jesse Capon went into the Superstitions. He was 35. He'd been obsessed with the Lost Dutchman for years. He had maps, notes, plans. He told friends he was getting close. He had a camera to document everything. He never came back. His body was found 3 years later at the bottom of a cliff. That same year, a 62-year-old man named Curtis Merworth went missing, found dead months later. Cause of death unclear. The Forest Service stopped keeping official counts after a while. Too depressing. The number floated around 600, but nobody really knows. Could be more. So what happened to Jacob Waltz's mine? Maybe it never existed. Maybe he stole that gold and lied about its source. But that doesn't explain the quality. Assayers who tested his samples said they'd never seen or that pure from any known mine in Arizona. If he stole it from somewhere nobody's ever found. Maybe the mine caved in. Earthquakes hit the region. Flash floods tear through those canyons. A century and a half is a long time. If the entrance was hidden before, it could be completely buried now, indistinguishable from the rock face around it. Maybe the Apache sealed it. They had reasons. Spiritual ones. Practical ones. They didn't want white men tearing up their land. If they knew where the mine was, they could have collapsed it, erased the landmarks, made sure it stayed lost. Or maybe it's still there, waiting, and everyone who's found it has died before they could tell anyone. That last theory is the darkest. It suggests something about the Superstitions themselves, about what happens to people who go looking for things they shouldn't. The desert is unforgiving, yes, but these deaths feel different, targeted, patterned. What if Jacob Waltz wasn't lucky? What if he was allowed? The Apache have stories about those mountains, about things that live in the deep places, spirits that guard the earth. They say some land isn't meant to be taken from. That gold buried deep is buried for a reason. Prospectors ignored those warnings. They dug anyway, and the mountain responded. Today, people still search. Not as many as before. The modern world has moved on to other obsessions. But every year, a few make the trip. They pack their gear, study the old maps, convince themselves they've figured it out. Some come back, some don't. The Lost Dutchman Mine remains the deadliest treasure hunt in American history. Not because of the gold itself, but because of what it represents. The idea that fortune is just over the next ridge. That one more canyon, one more cave, one more day will reveal the secret. Jacob Waltz took that secret to his grave, and the Superstition Mountains have protected it ever since. With heat, with stone, with silence, and with death. Whether the mine is real or not almost doesn't matter anymore. The legend has claimed more lives than any gold rush. It's become a story about obsession, about what people will risk when they believe something impossible is within reach. The mountain doesn't care about belief. It just waits, and watches, and takes. If you ever find yourself in Arizona, you can see the superstitions from the highway. They rise up in the distance, all shadow and sharp edges. Beautiful in a harsh way. Forbidding. Smart people admire them from afar. Others grab their hiking boots and head into the canyons, carrying maps, chasing dreams, following a German immigrant's ghost deeper into the rock. And the mountain, patient as stone, welcomes them in.